This guy understands paranormal.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Unexplained Cases Live. You got Rick Garner, your executive producer, Darren Dito, our extraordinaire anchor and reporter, and also Maryam the medium, and tonight's special guest, Brandon Alvis. Welcome, dude.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we've been looking forward to chatting with you, and hey, we'll get right into it, and I'll turn over the interrogation to Darren there.
Okay, thanks a lot, Rick. Hey, welcome to the show. I'm very happy to have you tonight. And I was going to ask you about why you got involved in the field of paranormal investigation. You touched on it a little bit about losing your brothers. I'm very sorry about that. What has it been like since that happened that you started your investigations? What have you learned and taken away from that?
Well, I founded the American Paranormal Research Association in 2006 to solely investigate historical locations across the United States. And my interest, again, began in a very young age. 1995, I lost my oldest brother to cancer. 2004, I lost another brother to suicide. So that kind of sent me on my journey into the paranormal. It was never really about having a personal experience, never really experiencing ghostly phenomena per se. It was more about growing up at a very young age and learning about life after death and the possibility of life after death. So before I ever stepped foot in the field, I read as much literature as I can get my hands on about ghosts and hauntings, everything from psychic phenomena to scientific investigation. And so before I ever stepped foot in the field, I reached out to engineers, medical doctors, scientists, people that can help me remain grounded in scientific principle in helping me understand the possibility of a life after death. So that's what I did. And I founded that organization in 2006, and I've been investigating actively. And that's what led me to Ghost Hunters today. So it's been a great journey, and I'm very excited about it.
Speaking of Ghost Hunters, congratulations. You guys wrapped up a second season. First one was fantastic. What's that experience like working with your crew of investigators? Seems like you really have a great chemistry.
Yeah, it's been great. You know, we're from different walks of life, different parts of the country, and throwing all of us together to investigate has been a really interesting experiment that's worked out very well. So you see in the first season where Grant Wilson is leading the team, kind of guiding us, mentoring us in a way. But if you've seen the second season, it changes drastically. You see new leadership, you see new methodology, new protocols, things like that. But you think about the old school version of Ghost Hunters, the original version of Ghost Hunters with TAPS, Jason Hawes, Grant Wilson, and their investigators. If it wasn't for that show, we would not be where we are today. We would not be in this position where there's this platform that created this ideology, this methodology, where you go out and investigate locations. I think a lot of people did that for many years. They read about it. They've experimented in their own way. But if it wasn't for that show, I think that it wouldn't create the thousands, if not millions, of paranormal investigators throughout the world that exist today. And being able to come in and work with Grant Wilson and do that first season, and then seeing that transformation into the second season, where there's a new methodology, a new protocol, and a new version of the show, it's been exciting. It's been fantastic, and I'm very grateful.
It's been awesome. It's great. It's great television. Science is huge. You're a highly skilled technician when it comes to gathering evidence. How has that changed? Let's just say maybe like in the last 5 years, as far as using technology to track and try to understand paranormal activity. What's it been like for you?
Well, you know, it's interesting because, again, when I founded the American Paranormal Research Association in 2006, I reached out to this panel that I put together. And these are people I've been consulting for many years. And when I was initially contacted about doing this show, I had no idea it was Ghost Hunters at first. And when they brought me in and they started to talk about me and started to talk to me and interview me and ask about my perspective about television and paranormal television per se, they brought me out and they said that we would like you to meet with not only A&E, but Pilgrim Films, which is a great company. And they brought me out and they said, hey, we want you on this show. We would like to work with you. The first thing that came to my mind is I've never been interested on being on television. It's not not my thing. I'm not interested in that. I've always been a behind the camera guy. I'm creative with filmmaking and things like that. I've never wanted to be in front of the camera. Paranormal investigation has always been a personal thing for me, very personal thing. So when they brought me out and talked to me about that, the first thing I told them is if you're not going to allow me to come out and investigate the way I've been doing since 2006, I don't want to be involved.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, that's exactly why we want you on the show, is because we want you to conduct the same research you've been doing, and we just want to document it. And that was the moment I wanted to be involved and actually signed on to do the show. But it's tough because paranormal television is such a interesting thing. There's so much misinformation out there. There's so much pseudoscience, so many negative things happening out there that it's tough. I never wanted to be involved in that.
Right.
I didn't want to put my reputation, my many years of research on the line to be on a TV show. It's not of interest to me. I wanted to do the best research possible and go out there and provide the best data and provide the best information possible. But again, so with all this technology, I've been utilizing the same stuff for many years. And I just brought that mindset and that methodology to the modern version of Ghost Hunters that we're seeing now in the second season.
Yeah, there's one piece of equipment I got to ask you about, the electron multiplying CCD camera. Awesome. A couple of episodes specifically. I know one was in New Mexico, out in Lincoln County in Fort Stanton. And then also pretty close to where I am in Arizona, in Clifton, Arizona. Tell us more about the evidence. Well, first of all, tell me how that works, and then the cool evidence you captured.
Absolutely. So again, going back to this panel that I compromised for many years, I put together, I put this panel together and I asked them from a scientific point of view, from an engineering point of view, if ghosts are real and ghosts exist, from your standpoint, how does that happen? And they said, it is possibly photon events. And I had no idea what a photon event was at first. I had no idea. So I was taught and put into these lessons that photons are energy. Photons are these light events that carry electromagnetic energy that are all throughout the universe, right? And I was told that there is a specific camera called an EMCCD camera that actually records and documents single photon events. And I was lucky enough to actually have that brought out, and we took it to Fort Stanton in New Mexico, and I put it into this location. And we actually documented something that not only could I not explain, but I showed it to my scientific consultant, and he had no idea what it was. So photon events are light events that carry electromagnetic radiation, and they're all throughout the universe. So is it possible that these entities, these ghosts, whatever you want to call them, are manifesting through photons? I think that we did have a tremendous breakthrough, and I think that we do have a huge step forward for this field, and I think that we broke through that scientific barrier with that.
Awesome. What about Clifton? Wasn't there a moment that you guys had a aha moment too?
We did, absolutely. We saw these, what some would call orbs, light events. I like to call them luminous phenomena, whatever it is. If you're using an infrared camera, a 4K, 1080, whatever it may be, whatever resolution it is, you're going to see dust, moisture, bugs, whatever it may be. But this camera does not register that. And you saw that myself and Brian Murray went in there trying to debunk that. And we tried to find a natural explanation for that. We tried to create dust. We used bugs, whatever it may be, to try and see if that would affect the EMCCD camera. It did not happen. So there's something going on when it comes to photon events. And there's something going on when it comes to the idea that these photon events may be the mechanism behind the manifestation of ghosts and hauntings. So we'll have to look into that further, and I think that coming up soon, myself and Mustafa Gadalari are going to do some really cool things that'll further that research. So I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome. Hopefully we get the COVID thing out of the way. You guys can start shooting a third season. What about EVPs? You know, over the years, Rick and I, when we've gone out, you capture some of them like, well, you know, it sounds like they're saying something, but I'm not really sure. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, how do you cut through and say like, whoa, that's a class A or that's a class B?
Well, the biggest thing with EVP is if you're going to actually go out there and record audio data and trying to find EVP, you have to use the highest recording quality as possible, the highest bit rate, the highest quality, right? So if you have the highest bit rate possible and you have these very clean recordings, you can take that to an audio engineer and you can break that down through a spectrum analysis, and you can actually have an audio engineer go through frequency by frequency, and they can tell you, is it a straight radio frequency? Is it a straight cell phone frequency? Or is it something they can't explain that sounds like human speech? So that's the thing. So I think that EVP is a real phenomena. And I do think that if you're going to try and collect that, you have to have the highest quality recording possible, the most data, the highest bit rate, and have that looked at by a third-party opinion, an expert, to tell you if this is something natural or something unexplainable.
Get rid of the doubt in that. What about EMF too? I know people are like, oh yeah, whatever your things, your millimeter or K2 meter. What are your thoughts on that? How accurate are those when you go into a place and do a sweep and you get a reading and then you come back later and it's different? I mean, should we trust those results that we get when we go out on an investigation?
EMF is a tough situation, right? So there's so many different devices out there, right? Some of which are built for paranormal investigation, which I think are not the most trustworthy, right? So if you're going to utilize EMF and you're going to utilize EMF data, you have to use low frequency EMF devices, right? There's so much man-made EMF, there's so much natural EMF out there that if you're going to utilize that as actual data to say, hey, look, I'm actually in communication with an entity, that's tough. You can remember the old days when people were using, excuse me, there's a loud motorcycle.
That's okay.
Remember the old days when people were utilizing K2 meters, right? And they're saying that this is actual communication with spirits or entities. Not the case in any way, shape, or form. Even the old trifield meters, right? The analog trifield meters are very much manipulated and contaminated by even radio frequencies. If you have a walkie-talkie on you, that's going to completely contaminate that device.
Right.
So
I was going to say, you set it up right. The one question I really wanted to ask you about, well, of course, the camera too, but the one that I'm still on the fence about is a REM pod. If you want to explain how that works, what are your thoughts on that? It just seems like, because we've used one before, and it's like, well, I don't know if I'm really buying. It's just so easy to set it off.
I will never use a REM pod. I've used them in the past, right? So I've used every device I'm going to talk about, I've utilized in the field, and I've tested them. I've used them with scientists, with engineers. These are people I've consulted for many years. So I'm not just making a blind judgment on these devices in any way, shape, or form. I've utilized them in the field. I've actually had them tested. I've had them looked at by consultants of mine. The REM pod is so easily manipulated by radio frequencies, cell phone frequencies, man-made energy. It's contaminated. It's a false positive in every way, shape, or form. So REM pods, old trifield meters, K2 meters, a majority of these are completely false positive driven devices that we cannot use or trust in any way, shape, or form. So there's very few devices out there that we can use to actually further this field. And the majority of those are from other industries that we have to adapt into our field. All these devices that are created for paranormal investigation are simply for that, to fulfill someone's own prophecy, for someone to believe what they already believe, which is already a bias. And that's very dangerous for this field.
What about, I know I'm up against the clock here, but what about an Alvis and a SLS camera? What do you think about those two? No. Nope. Okay.
Nope.
Great. So my bag full of stuff over here, I'm just going to take it. I'm just going to throw it away. Like everything's going to.
Yeah. Get rid of it.
Get rid of it. Okay. I got to start over. Now,
again,
why are they bad?
So I'll say this right now. Again, there are no experts in this field at all. No experts. No one knows there's no all-knowing being that knows how the energy works or how paranormal activity manifests itself. It does not exist. But if we want to be taken seriously in this field, we have to use technology adapted from other technical industries that can be looked at by a third party. We have to open ourselves up to scientific scrutiny. We have to. The SLS camera was built for a gaming device that is. I did an article for Tech World magazine in 2014, and the SLS camera is driven with false positives.
Interesting.
Completely. No one to this day knows how the Alvis works. What's the theory behind it? I still don't understand. I've asked many years.
I've watched some of the TV shows, and they're like, "Oh, it says gym," and we've used one before. It's like I heard that like 3 times when I was at a place. It's the same words that seem to be popping up all the time. So,
is it EMF? I mean, is it EMF driving this device? What is it? What's driving
it's
this
magic,
device?
I think.
Yeah, exactly. But the SLS camera is built to detect people playing a video game, right? That's how it was developed. Yeah. That's what it's supposed to be. And it shoots out a grid in infrared, and it's trying to correct people playing a video game. So it's trying to help people play the game better. So you can literally point that camera into a dark space and it's going to recognize patterns in every way, shape, or form. So again, if we want to move this field forward, we want to be taken seriously, and we want to step out of the shadow of pseudoscience. We cannot be using devices meant for paranormal investigation, meant to find entities, meant to find ghosts. That is a dangerous path to take. But again, if you're into paratourism, if you're into a weekend warrior kind of situation, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if we want to further this field, we have to step away from these devices. And if we don't, we're in trouble. And we're just going to be going back and back and back. So, it's up to each person. So we'll see what happens.
Awesome. I could talk to you all night. I have even more questions, but I see that we've got the Brady Bunch boxes. Of course, we're doing a remote viewing tonight, Brandon, of the Tower of London. Just tell us why you picked that place and what interests you about it.
So one thing to me, I've always been a big believer in the fact that it's not about eyewitness testimony per se when it comes to paranormal investigation and paranormal phenomena. I've always been a big believer that there's a history associated with that, right? So it's what I like to call a formula of a haunting. I think that you can go through and research a location and see certain events that would lead to paranormal phenomena, not really about a person saying, hey, I saw a ghost there. And I think the Tower of London is filled with that formula of a haunting. I think there's so many events that have taken place there, so many pieces of history that would lead to a haunting that I think that, I think that the Tower of London would be a haunted place in some way.
Yeah, I'd love to go there one day. Go ahead, Rick.
Well, before we get into that, just wanted to give some shout outs. Bunch of people in the chats and a lot of people saying hello to you, Brandon. So I'll see if I can touch on some of those. But we got Kennedy and Deborah and Jason, the Skeleton Crew Paranormal. Thanks for dropping by. Shell Bell, Teresa, got Sydney. Let's see here. Seeker James is from Ireland, so welcome.
All right.
Got Jessica. There's also let's see here. We got Ingrid. And seeing if I can scroll quick enough here. Samantha. Actually, Samantha's from Australia. So talked about from Australia, loves ghost hunters. So welcome there. Now, Michelle Marsh, actually she's from Ohio, and basically just had a quick question. Was like, hey, what's it like working with Grant? And hope that he's doing well. Just hadn't seen him lately, but loves and hugs to all. So had a little question for you there, Brandon.
I could not hear Rick at all.
I'm so sorry. We were getting a whole bunch of shout outs, and one of your fans wanted to know how Grant is doing. I know he appears sometimes on the show. Is everything okay? And I'm sure he's got a lot of stuff on his plate right now.
Oh yeah, no, he's a very busy guy, and he's out there doing his thing. So yeah, he's doing well, very well. Yeah, nothing wrong with him at all. But he's just laying low. He's been in the field a long time, been on the road a long time, and he's I think enjoying time with his family. So
cool. Yeah, he's just like a legit kind of laid back, kind of the guy you want to go have a beer with. That's what what I mean. He just seems really genuine on the air. Rick, do you think you were able to navigate the gremlins, or what do you think?
Oh, I'm not sure that because I dropped out, maybe Brandon won't be able to hear me, but that's okay as long as he can hear Miriam. Tammy from Valley Spirit Communications. Also, we got Wes and Samantha, Mike, and Vicky, and Rochelle, Sam.
Yeah,
making sure I got everybody there basically. So sorry if I didn't mention you. I'm saying hi to you in the chat, but I'm actually going to hand it over to Miriam and hopefully make sure that Brandon and Miriam can at least hear each other.
Yes.
Hi, Brandon. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, absolutely. I can't hear Rick at all.
Good.
So
that happens sometimes. It happened to me earlier, but probably when he pops back in, you might be able to get him back. And Darren, okay, good. I can hear you guys. Before you jump in, I just want to explain a little bit about why this remote for me is a little different than the others. And the reason for that is there is a lot of stories that have been told that aren't true. There's a lot of tall tales. There's also been a lot of upkeep on the building that has caused it to lose some of its history. And so for me, I'm going to need to navigate like this first layer of almost cosmetic, and then navigate to the next layer, which is these stories that were told that weren't true, and then navigate to the truth. So it just might take me a minute to get there. I was working on that while you guys were talking. So Darren, absolutely, you can begin.
Okay, a little bit about the Tower of London, built in 1078 by William the Conqueror. There are, what a beautiful place, 20 towers on the property. Medieval kings and queens lived in what could be called really palatial apartments for the day. Then it became a prison, though. Part of it in the 1100 continued to be one until 1952. Actually, they had some Nazis that were imprisoned there. Rudolf Hess. This place is very violent. Well, there's a beefeater right there. A very violent location. Allegedly, more than 100 executions happened there. This was great. Known as a place of horrible torture, and death. Allegedly, 93 beheadings, 11 by a firing squad. Goes without saying. Lots of paranormal activity. I did have a question for you, Maryam. There's a lot of unfortunate victims to choose from, but there was one that had that was supposed to meet the executioner, and she did, but things did not go very well because she essentially fought the guy off and took off and met a very grisly Anne Margaret Del Pole, the Countess of Salisbury. People hear screams near the scaffold where it was. Also, they will envision the horrible bloody killing that happened. Anything on Margaret? Are you feeling anything about her?
What's her last name again?
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but Del Pole, the Countess of Salisbury.
Okay. So the first thing I did start to pick up on was not necessarily kings and queens. And I think I kind of bypassed anything that did come up simply to, it seemed a little too obvious. But I was picking up on a groundskeeper. I'm going to come back to this, or bring me back to this if I don't, Darren, because I feel like there might be something there. But there's this groundskeeper that is someone who we've seen at other locations. I remember seeing the groundskeeper at Hart Island. And I don't know if this was someone that was, he's saying he was actually there. He did actually take care of the grounds. But what's interesting is these groundskeepers tend to, once they leave body, stay. They have such a connection and passion to their work and to what is...
well, they're still doing their job. I guess they took, they had a passion for it when they were living, and in the afterlife. Can you tell from what time period this person could be from?
1950 came to mind, but I think you mentioned, didn't you say 1950?
Well, it was a prison up until 1952. Like I said, during World War II, there were some Nazis that were there. So, I mean, people lived there today. There are some families. So, I mean, there's still groundskeepers, but that's interesting. So the 1950s.
And to be honest, I'm not trusting that number. You know that my dates aren't always great. I'm not totally trusting that number. I'm having to navigate through a lot of BS, if you will. So hang tight. This guy seems to be legitimate. I'm asking him to show me around. This one spiral staircase in particular seems to be where he's bringing me up to, where a lot actually took place. So here's the thing. Whatever was documented from very twisted perspectives. He's telling me that to get to the truth of what really happened, you would have to, he's laughing, you probably have to talk to a psychic, someone who could communicate directly. But I'm looking at this 1950s, no, because what he's showing me and expressing to me is much older. His time was from a lot older than that. And he was saying he was a groundskeeper at a time when there was Joy. There was a lot of joy. There was a lot of love. There was a lot of peace. Even though outside the walls there was war, inside there was love. And this was before, he's saying, the royal family, if you will. I don't know that that's the right word. Royalty. The families that have lived there became tainted, became driven by money, became driven by status and fame. And so this is like probably the very, very, very beginnings of the history of this land, of this property. And this goes so deep. He wants me to share with you all the story of this woman who was she's in for television's sake, words people can relate to, peasant type dressing, right? Because we're expecting this to be royalty. She was just in brown dress and very simple. But she lived there. And this was a time when those that were of higher class, if you will, didn't dress it and act it and behave it. This is why, wondering why Brandon was connected to this property. This is why Brandon's connected to this property, because this gentleman is walking us through the authenticity of what this land, this property was built on, and how it went bad and how it went awry from there. It was built originally from a very deep, authentic place. These people had, it was about family, love, nourishment, and sharing. Their wealth they shared with everybody. And witchcraft was a huge part of this, and witchcraft with the positive connotation, not what people think witchcraft is. But it's actually when women practiced witchcraft was just it's who women were. It's how we manifested crops. It's how we manifested healing. It's how we picked our healing medicines. It's where it all started from. It was before religion came in and took over and decided to make rules. And I'm not going to get political or religious. I'm just speaking. He's giving me the information.
It seems like he's giving you the happy version of it, except for all the people that were executed there. I don't know, the people that got beheaded or a firing squad. This
was all before that, yeah.
Okay.
So that's what this land was built on prior, but you're moving me out of the light. That's your job. All right. So let's move out of the light.
Did I do that, or did I piss him? Does he have a name by chance?
No, he said Stuart, but again, that was just as soon as you asked, that's what I heard, Stuart. Names and dates aren't, my strongest point, but it was an S word. But you're right, because I could sit here and talk about history and how beautiful at one point in time life really was, and then it all shifted. But no one wants to hear about that, right?
No, it became a shit show is what happened. They started chopping people's heads off.
All right, let me get to that. All right, so let's Stuart, I'll refer to you as Stuart because that's what I believe I heard you say. We're going to move away from the light. I'm going to have to give him something better than this.
Does he know anything about two little boys? Does he know anything about two children by chance?
He's passing me off. He says he doesn't have any of that information. He's passing me off. Hang on. Let me see who's coming up next. There's actually, this isn't a joke, but there's actually guards at the door that are debating, who decide who gets to come in and communicate and who doesn't. So hang on. I got to see if I can get in. All right, so there's so much to pick from. Hang on. So we want to start with, so beheadings. Is that what you said? Or is that what they're telling me?
I tell you what, that was their instrument of choice to punish people back in the day. Yes.
Okay. So, oh man. Okay. So one of them wants me. Okay, I'm not going to. He wants me to describe what it's like to be beheaded. I'm not doing that. Darren, how good you are now at
Yeah, we
pulling out
went
of
from
light
all
into
this
darkness.
fuzzy,
God.
pastures, and now. No, well, it
I'm
was.
not gonna do. Okay, we're
I mean,
not gonna do
it's a
that regardless.
beautiful place. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, the history is very dark. If you ended up in that prison, you were in big trouble.
Yeah, so he's okay. So there's this one gentleman here. I'm not going to tell that. I'm not going to tell that story. Okay, so I'm telling him that I'm not going to tell that story. So talk to me about. Okay, so he said um, they would, they were taking people that didn't commit crimes. This at his time, he's was when was this building built? Because he's saying 18 something.
Oh no,
He's
I mean
his time.
it goes way back to 1078, and then it was a
Oh, okay.
prison from 1100 to 1952.
Okay, because he's referencing 18 something is when he was there. And he said he was taken, he didn't commit a crime. What was happening was somehow there was money tied to the amount of people that were killed, the amount of people that were caught. It was somehow part of the society, financial institution that they had. There was money that was made this way. He was taken solely because he had a family, he had a wife, he had two kids, and he was just taken because they would go through these periods, like they would sweep the neighborhoods, and he's saying I was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. They would fill these cells or these rooms like to capacity. People would die simply from heat, lack of ventilation, lack of food, lack of water. Those that didn't would experience torture. He said he experienced, this is hard. He wants to get into, he's really obviously very mad that this happened to him, that he was taken away from his family, that this at the time, this family that ran this building, was so corrupt that nothing could have saved or protected him, and that helplessness, and that feeling of absolute victimization is where he's stuck in. Hold on, his wife's actually coming in. His wife and his two kids. Hold on, let me help him pass over really quick. You don't need to tell us stories. Just go, please. My gosh, you've been stuck in this long enough. I'll find someone else. Go ahead, go, please. Ugh. Okay. Let me. Who did you say you want me to reach out to? Because someone is there that loves to tell tall tales. But let me see. What was that person? Margaret?
Yes, Margaret was she was called a enemy of the state, and she was to be beheaded, but she decided to cause an issue with that and was hacked up, essentially. And if you believe it, her ghost, people hear screams, or they'll see a vision of the reenactment of what happened. That's one of the more famous tales of the tower, if you will.
Those are actually true. That is actually happening, and what people are seeing is actually true. She's dark. I mean, she was dark in body, she's dark out of body. And she is choosing to stay there and just harass. She just is angry, obviously, of what she was angry, and she was really corrupt as it was. So I can't even get into, I don't want to get into her story with her, because she's got a lot of lies there. That's how she ended up in that place.
There's really a sad story, and I don't know if you can see anything, about two little boys that had an issue with their uncle Richard III. Quite a tale about their demise, if you will. Do you pick up on anything about children at all?
No, hang on though. Let me finish with this Margaret character, because she
Okay.
still has, she's So these visions people are having, and you said they're seeing her, and then what else are they doing?
Well, they hear screams. I mean, I suppose if you're about
Yeah.
you're getting hacked up, there could be some type of residual energy there.
So no, this is actually her. She will actually scream. This isn't. They're not experiencing. So the screams, gosh, she's got this down like this is her job. It's like her day job. Like she screams so people will hear her. Like she purposely scares people and does that. And her it's what she's how people are all having this vision of her, which is true, is because her anger and her darkness is really hardcore. Like she was really hardcore dark in body, and she carried that with her. And so she can project that out. So when you walk through her energy, when you walk through her space, she's putting on you this visual. It's very real. And these people are very much having this experience. Hang on, I want to have a conversation with her, because I'm not understanding why she's just allowed to just create havoc still in this place. Oh, they're saying she's not allowed in the building. I'm actually speaking to her outside the building.
So there's like a gatekeeper in the afterlife that's decides who can come in and out. Okay, interesting.
Well, that's who I was talking to earlier. Remember I said they've got like people there that are deciding who can come in. I haven't even gone inside the building yet. Prior with the first gentleman, he brought me through. The guy that was beheaded, he showed me this one space, but I was looking in. I wasn't in it. This is still outside. I mean, with this building could take hours, but I also got to try to get in. She's not allowed in. So she's just outside scaring the crap out of people. And hold on, I want to see if I can get her out of there. I don't like, I mean, it's one thing for people to want to, capture, ghosts and stuff like that. But like, it's another thing to like instill fear through someone's psyche. Like, that's not right what she's doing. It's not, she's dark, man. Hold on. So I'm going to approach you. You said her name was Margaret?
Yes.
Yeah.
She's the Countess of Salisbury.
So Margaret, I'm gonna ask you. You have two choices. You can stay here and you can not scream when people approach and not project your life experiences onto others, or you can leave. You can choose one of those two. She wants to know how I got in, how I got this far. That doesn't matter how I got in this far. What matters is I'm asking you to stop. And if you don't choose one, I'll choose one for you, or I'll have another being come in and remove you. My guides are saying we can remove her, that this isn't okay anymore. She's got to go. Whew. Okay, so which one is it? It's funny. The guards behind her, the ones that are like approve who gets to come in and who doesn't, don't even give a crap that I'm doing this. They don't have any they're not light filled, put it that way. Okay, so I'm going to call in someone and have you removed, okay? Because you were not agreeing on it. She's saying no, I'm going to stay and do my job. So I'm calling in it's okay, just come down. I can't hear your name. It's all right, just come in.
Stuart's not there, is he?
No.
No.
It's requiring two angels to take her. So she's trying to take me with her. Hang on. She's pissed. She doesn't understand how I got in. Doesn't matter. Just okay. They're telling me I need to stop engaging so they can remove her. Okay.
So what do these guys look like? Are they energy, or do you actually see a form when you're talking about these gatekeepers?
They're presenting themselves to me in that traditional, like the hat, like that traditional London gatekeeper. That's how they're presenting themselves to me.
Gotcha.
I think this is some of this is for the story of it. I'm not saying that I think they're bullshitting me just to appease the story, but they can't, for some reason, they can't tell I'm calling them out on it. Okay, so here we are. I'd like to enter the building, actually, please. Okay, we got lucky because I was for a second there thinking, should have they let me in? The show's over. Okay, so there's an entryway, the original entryway. That first entrance is where I keep going back. There's so much, there was so much love in this building. It's just such a shame. But yeah, okay, so I'm in this entryway, kind of the ballroom area. And this isn't where any, obviously, of the beheading or anything like that went on. What's fascinating about this building is we've got these rooms that have this majestic feel, which is very real. It's, you know, people would come in and they'd be in their gowns and like everything you'd see on TV, and you think like that happened, but it's like you slide one door and you have the darkness behind it. And I don't just mean the torture and whatever else was going on. I mean the darkness that these people exuded. They gave off such a false sense of love, false sense of good character. There's just all such BS.
So maybe they're pompous royalty people.
Absolutely. I mean, it is all BS. None of it was real. But these grand rooms make people feel like something beautiful and amazing was going on there. It was at one point, but I'm not allowed to go there. So this now, this century 1901 is where we are now. And they're saying there's a lot of secret, they're showing me like this, there's a lot of secret doors, but there's this one door, this one room in particular where like the wall actually, like it's either a wall or like something in front of it. And behind there is where, what happened back there? Oh God, I don't want to go back there. That's okay. I'm good. That was a lot of like abuse within the family, sexual abuse, physical abuse. That was kind of a room that children were brought to and they were abused. So I'm gonna not go there. Who were the boys you said?
Well, you'd have to go back in time for that. They were Richard III was their uncle. And so Edward V and his brother Richard, the Duke of York, they were imprisoned in the Tower, and then they disappeared. Which
that's true. A lot of people were actually imprisoned in the Tower. That's actually true.
What about how they died?
I don't have those two specific boys with me. I have just, there's like so many people in so many rooms that are trying to like communicate their story. There's so much anger and hurt because people were so wronged. That's why I'm just like trying to sift through who was up there. Those two boys have passed on actually, and come back in a body. Brandon, do you have a son?
I do, yes.
There's a connection to your son. He was involved. He was here. What's your son's name?
Lucius.
Cool.
I don't want to talk about your son live on camera, but there's a connection to him there, just out of respect for him. So these two boys have passed. They've gone in, they've made amends and have moved on. What we have though is this one space. This they keep bringing me back. Was there you said it was a prison, right? Because that's where they keep bringing me back to, is a prison.
Well, it was a mixed use space, if you will. Yes, it had like fancy houses and stuff on there, and then it was a prison. And if you ended up there, it usually was not a good thing.
Yeah. That's where that same gentleman was saying that they would capture, the one that passed on, fortunately, they would take people in. It was a way to generate funds and money. They were someone was paying someone to do this. There was also like They made their money. It was like people would pay to come watch this stuff happen or something. Like people would pay for it, which is where money was generated, revenue. Why people would take citizens that had done nothing wrong, put them. They're showing me this one space in particular where there's a ton of spirits that are still huddled together, that are still stuck. That really, they're even too scared to talk to me. Actually, they're saying they're considering me. They're assuming I'm dark because I'm in there. They're saying, I don't understand how you're in here. Only dark energies walk through here. I can come through. They're saying they haven't seen light come through here. What can I do to help? What can I do to help? I'm actually going to call in multiple. Oh, there's already a ton of beings coming through. Oh, it's like we popped open the top to it. I can see out of it now. Okay. So we're actually going to take all of you out of there right now. Those guards at the front don't care. I don't know what they're doing there. I don't know who they are. I feel like they're like frozen in time. So I'm going to ask all of you to be lifted out. Just look up. They can't look up. And so many of them are still like huddled as if they're chained, and they're not anymore, but they're still in that same position. And you're okay. So you're not, just look up. Just look up. If one of you does, the rest will follow. Hold on, and then I'll go get you guys some good stories. One sec. Oh, I'm emptying out this cell. It's not gonna, if anyone decides to go visit, don't go visit that one. There shouldn't be any energy in that space after this. Okay. Okay. Hold on. There's one of you in the corner. Come on. Hold on. Let's go. Quickly, get out. Got it. Okay. Next story, or next room. Okay, Darren.
Yes. Shifting gears on you.
Yeah.
What about animals on the property? Is anybody showing you, or are you seeing anything about some animals that were on the property?
I mean, there was a ton of animals. That was a given, but I'm not picking up on one specifically. Are people hearing sounds or something?
Well, there was a royal menagerie there that it was kind of interesting, where they had like tigers. I think they even had a polar bear, monkeys. And there are reports of, people, they eventually, all the animals went to the London Zoo, but they were there for a long time. But people report, hearing animal sounds, things like that. I just thought that was one of the more interesting stories of that space, to have these zoo animals. Originally, I guess they were there because the royalty, King John wanted them to fight, which was bad. But eventually, I guess they just were on the grounds. I have no idea, but just this royal menagerie of animals, big animals. So not dogs.
Yeah. I see the animals, but I don't feel like they're there still. I don't feel like animals don't, an animal's spirit doesn't have the desire to haunt, or an animal understands its connection to spirit, to the universe. An animal understands its evolution. And it doesn't need to. The only reason why it would hang out or stay is to be of service. And there's no animals there because there's nothing to be of service. You can't protect these grounds. These grounds are covered by very dark energies that are very much controlling this ground. And so animals are very light filled. They're not going to want to be there. So they're not there. I'm not dismissing or discrediting what anyone's heard. I'm just saying that very well would most likely be a human expressing or making those sounds, messing with people, because animals don't do that. Animals are greater and much more grand than humans in their evolution. They just don't do that. So no, whatever they're hearing is coming from a spirit that was embodied as a human.
I got you. Another one of the famous stories involves Henry VI, that possibly was murdered while he was praying. On the anniversary of his death, his ghost is said to appear pacing around the spot where he was killed. Then at the stroke of midnight, he disappears. Sounds like a great story. I'm not sure if I'm buying it exactly, but is there any type of energy of this Henry VI character?
So I'm speaking as soon as you started telling me this story, this male energy stepped in. He's bringing me, I'm back in that ballroom now, and I don't know if it's him yet. This is someone who was a part of the royal family, but he was a good son. He was a good son born into a bad family, and he was of no use to anybody there. So he was taken out simply because he had two options. Would be to leave the royal family, and he would have ended up killed, or stay and push their agenda. And he couldn't do that. He couldn't do that. And so this gentleman is telling me that, yes, I was taken out, but I knew I was going to be taken. I knew my fate. I knew that I wasn't going to, it wasn't for me to stay and fight. Hang on. Hold on. He just pulled at a heartstring for a second. Brandon, he's telling you that unlike him, it's important for you to stay and fight. It's important for you to fight for what you believe and fight for what's in your heart. He says, don't bail, just stick with it. He's saying, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, for sure. I get that 100%.
But he knew that he would end up in that fate, and he's saying yes, he is the gentleman you're referencing. He just wants to. Brandon said he totally. He gets it. He's really. What did you say his title was, Darren?
What was he? Oh, sorry. There's so many people. Henry VI. He was supposed to inherit the British and French thrones, but it didn't work out so well for him.
Henry VI, Brandon, is your guide. That is someone that you're going to call on. There's this twin soul happening. There's a familiarity there. There's a lineage there. It's really deep, but he is your go-to. He's your guide. He's the one that you will go to, and you will ask for direction, especially when you're feeling lost. He's there to provide you direction. He says he's just been waiting for you because the time hasn't been right yet. You've had others looking over you. You have others that you have been needing to work with and heal and manage. But he says, now it's your turn to have a guide that's direct, like a twin soul, he keeps saying. And he's wanting to stress that this is purely about you and why you are here. My connection to you isn't about your past. It's not about looking back and who was I and what was I and how was I related. He's saying, I'm here to bring you forward, and I want you to be able to bring yourself forward. So being able to release the past, he's saying there were things that drove you to do things in the past, and he wants those things to shift. He wants you to come from a different place, open the heart, and come solely from the heart when you make choices. He's saying that when he was in body in his time, and he had this regime, which all of us can relate to, a regime of some sorts in the family, whatever that means. It can be negative or positive. For him, he was saying that I just stayed true to who I was, even though what was surrounding me was pulling and pushing, try this, do that, what about this, what about that. He said, I just stayed the course. Even though my course was to die, I knew that that's not your course. That's not your fate. Your fate is to actually change the direction of things and to stick with that. Your son is going to play a huge role in that. Your son is a familiar being. Your son is someone that you have been with before in body. But anyway, you make sure you get the name from Darren. He's your guide. I'm going to pass you off so you don't talk through me anymore and you actually speak directly to Brandon, so that I am no longer, so that the power lies with you, Brandon. And so you believe the power, the intuition, the hearing, the seeing lies with you. It doesn't require me or anyone like me. Okay.
All right. Miriam, I hate to be the bad guy as I usually am at this point, but since we're drawing down in minutes,
Good.
Gonna have to interrupt this to at least give a little bit of time for you to unwind and decompress, and then also obviously to find out, okay, Brandon, tech guy, you're used to dealing with all these amazing instruments in the research, but this unique experience, basically. So I'm curious, your thoughts, questions, anything in the few minutes.
Love it. I love it. I love it. This has been great, man. I've always been into this, man. Astral projection, all this stuff. This is fucking awesome, man. Excuse me. I don't know if I should cuss.
That's all right.
That's how intrigued I am right now. This is awesome. Fantastic. It's been a great time with you guys. Fantastic. Thanks for having me on. This has been amazing.
Awesome. Well, and what we found out every time is that when someone chooses a location, there's actually always a reason that they chose it. So I was intrigued to find out that. And then if you've got a few minutes, then off air, we can kind of tie up some loose ends there, basically, what we shared. But Brandon, anything that folks watching that you'd like them to know, anything coming up, anything, your website, anything to share with the folks?
Well, you can find anything out at brandonjalvis.com, but we have some projects coming up that I'm very excited to talk about. I can't announce it yet, unfortunately, but hopefully soon in the next 2 or 3 months, we can talk about it. But this has been awesome. What a pleasure. Fantastic.
Great. Well, Brandon, appreciate it. Thanks for giving the time. And everybody, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
you